Hi, and welcome to a quick walkthrough of the LiveScan 360 application, which we've built directly into the CRM module within enVisual. The idea behind the LiveScan system is to be able to enable the real-time scanning of new and existing entities into sanction lists. We'll kick straight into what happens when we're going to put a brand new entity through a scan prior to bringing them on board as a live client. Within the 360 environment, I'm going to go into my flow paths, my navigation tool, and I'm going to go into CRM, adding a new entity. This takes me to my flowchart, and I'm happy that this is going to be a person, so I have my person orientated flowchart in front of me, and I'll click on the add entity button to take me straight into the type of entity I'm setting up, and I'll start to put in the details behind the actual entity I'm putting in here. So I'm going to put into here, I'm going to be very creative. I'm going to create an entity called John Smith down to here. I'll flag them as a prospect in the system because we're not going to bring them on as yet. As you can see here, my smart tests of mandatory fields being completed or not, versus sort of blue versus a red flag if we're not here. It's also telling me here that I've got some possible duplicates that I can check on before I actually create the entity. I'm not going to do that because I'm doing this as a pure demonstration of the LiveScan application here. Okay. So moving through my menu structure here, my names are still visible down here. I'm going to go straight into, I might put an address in just for the sake of putting an address in. I'll put a primary address in. And I might just type in 234 Elm Street. Again, very creative stuff down here. And I'll put into here Brisbane. Brisbane. And I'll just go into Australia. Okay, there's my quick address set up to there. Right, so I've now got an address set up. Now I can also, I won't go into these options here, but these are very great options here for when we start putting in details of domiciles and registered addresses and those sorts of things, which are going to be very valuable for your factor on your CRS compliance tools. Okay, right, so I could technically go down this list down here and start putting in relationships, categories, set my security up, start putting in details of communications. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to LiveScan because that's what we're here today to go through. And down here, I've got down here the LiveScan button. I'll click on the LiveScan button. That takes me into my LiveScan form. Now this LiveScan form here has been configured to work with the RDC sanction list provider. You can obviously have a number of different providers which we link into LiveScan. This one here is geared up for RDC. And it's brought through the entity name. If I had to put a date of birth in, which I didn't do, it would have brought the date of birth through down to here. Now the other thing which is relevant down here is whether or not I want portfolio monitoring switched on, and I want global search switched on. Now these are specific to RDC. If I turn on global monitoring, that will actually, when it's done the scan on John Smith through RDC for the first time, it'll put John Smith into my list of portfolio monitored clients. Okay, so you may not want to do that for a prospect because it's a service that people like RDC tend to charge for, and we also have security on that particular flag too, so you can restrict who in your firm can set up and remove portfolio monitoring. And portfolio monitoring, as you know, is so that it will do a constant monitoring at regular intervals for you rather than a one-off scan, which is what we're doing here. Okay, it's brought through the address details down to here, and all I need to do from this point of view is press the send request button, and we can see there it's what it has done, it's picked up a match, and it's now going through some additional processing because it has found a match. And the processing, that what happens behind the scenes, it's now requesting source documents from RDC to be sent down to enVisual in the background, such as hit reports and that sort of thing. And you can also see there that the next field across is the number of alerted entities. Here it's found 40, so 40 potential hits around the name of John Smith, because John Smith, as you can imagine, is quite a common name. So we'll have to go through those 40 entries. There are 40 possible matches that it's found in its database, and we'll have to validate each of those 40 for matches versus non-matches. Now we do that once. It's one of those things that we do as a false positive management task. It's also brought down a risk score which is calculated by the provider. In this case it's RDC have created that risk score. Typically that's a risk score that you have modeled with RDC and what elements you find are risky. Okay, so that's really just the quick details on the initial search. We now go into a tab on the right hand side there called request history. So the entity details we've just put in has conducted the search. Where the results are, as well as any results we've looked at in the past, will be in the request history tab. Okay, now we have only done one search to date, which is the search we've just conducted here. Here's our date, here's our time, matches found. These are all details that were pulled down in the request we made there. And if I just scroll across there, you can see there that it's picked up, it's brought down a scan report from RDC. That's the report that they compiled in the background, sent down to us, and that document's been loaded into this grid where I can actually review it from here, which we'll have a look at. And it's also put that document into live file. Now it's put that document into live file against the entity John Smith that we've just created within enVisual. So we've now got a new entity on enVisual which you saw me create, and we've got a hit against it from RDC which it's recorded in its audit trail, and the document itself is now linked to John Smith in that live file document management database that we have. Okay, and I can just right click on this particular entry here. Okay, and I can open the document up. I'll just minimize some of these forms, and you can see here that this is the initial hit report that it's brought back. Now this is one of 55 pages. Okay, so it's quite a big piece of analysis we need to do down here. But as you scroll through the pages, you'll see this one here is entity ID ending with 844. Okay, entity ID 747. These are all different entities which it's found a hit against, which I'll have to validate. You can see they've got different photographs as well. Right, that's all contained within the one report, which is now saved permanently within your live file directory. Okay, so that's the hit there. Now down below, this record here is linked to this grid at the bottom. Now the grid at the bottom is basically looking at all the alert entities that we have to vet. So you typically have got down here, we've got 40 entities which we need to review, and these will be the 40 entities down here. You can see that you can sort of scroll through them all. Okay, obviously we won't go through all of them, but you can see there that valid information we're looking at here is that's the entity code within enVisual that we've just created. That's the entity on enVisual that we created, John Smith. That's always going to be the same. From the RDC hit though, that's the entity code that RDC have picked up, because they've got their own entity ID system, and these are the names of the hits that they've picked up. So you can see down there there's some slightly different variations on the word John Smith, John T. Smith, John Weston Smith. Okay, currently the match status is what we're saying is it a match or isn't a match, yes or no. That's the status at the moment. We can add a document to that, so we can add any source documents that we want, one document per hit. So when we go through and we validate the first one as a match or no match, we might want to add a document into there which might be our copy of John Smith's passport or something like that, just to prove that it's not a hit. Use it the way you want to use it. It's just a way to put a source file in. We also have excuse me, we also have a notes field down here to put some comments in. Now to scroll across there, the other areas which the system is storing is the last time the match status was modified, which is what we're going to do in the moment. It hasn't been done yet, so it's still sitting as a right now, today's date and today's time. Who the match change was made by, so if you've got a number of users which are coming in here and making decisions whether you've got a match or not, their user stamp will be put on that particular decision they've made. And this is the initial request date down here. Now being an enVisual 360 grid, you can move these column widths around, you can play around with the size of these, and they'll be saved after you close a form for the next time you run it. You can pick up columns and drag them onto and play around with your column order if you like. You can also hide columns. So some of these columns here, the reason why they're all there is because if you want to export this data into something like Excel, anything that's visible in this column, in this grid, will be exported into the Excel file. So you'll be able to have, for example, the fact that for an auditor to have a look at this analysis, they'll be able to see everything that's in this grid, what the enVisual entity was, all the different names of the hit entities that came from RDC, the decisions that were made at your end, is whether or not there's a match or not, right down to things like the dates that those decisions were made, when the actual original source or sort date, the date of the actual request was made. You can see there. So to do that, we literally select a row, as I've done there, and right click, and we go into edit match. Edit the match takes me into a match edit form, and I've just brought in the basic details of that. And I can say down here that I make my decision whether or not it's a match or not, and I do that based on the fact that I'm looking at the source document and I make a decision or not as to whether or not this particular John Smith that's been reported is the John Smith that we're dealing with. Okay, so I have to make a choice. My choice is either a positive, yes it is a match, or no it's not a match. Okay. If I want to attach a live file document to this particular decision, again it's optional. I click on the live file selection button there. When I click that, it'll open up my live file search form, and what it's doing down here, it's searching the live file database for any document that's been attached to that entity. Okay. If I want to make my search broader, I do as the usual. I normally do in a live file search. I click in this. I'll do it in a second. I click just next to the business unit, and it'll clear all these fields out, and I'll have a completely open live file system, subject to my security levels, of course. And I can choose any document. But typically, when you're taking an entity on board, I would expect to see against that entity other details of the identification tests and KYC that we've done, things like passports and driver's license. And I might want to attach one of those to this search to prove it's not the particular entity that, or it's not a match against what the RDC people have done. Okay, and I find the document and I right click on it. Okay, and I select the file. Okay, that's what I do there. I'll just do that. You can see that it brings the file back. That little tilde icon then appears to allow me to view it in the future. So if I come back here, I can view it at a later stage. Okay, but I'll also show you there. I'll just do that search again, and if I'm not happy with that entity, I want to broaden my search a little bit for whatever reason, I just click next to the business unit. Okay, click on the business unit I should say, and you can see that it clears out all of those little filters, and I've now got a whole range of entities I can actually have a look at here. So you can see there's all my entity lists down there. So I might want to, do a search on Peter Orban, something like that. Okay, Peter Orban, and I know that's his passport. See down there that these are the details behind the file, Orban passport, and I'll select that file instead, just for the sake of this exercise. Okay, yes I do. Okay, now when I view that document, I now get the infamous Peter Orban passport photograph. Okay, notes down here, I can add as much of a note field as I wish against that particular sort. Okay, and that's pretty much it. You can see down there that it's now I've actually now saved that. You can see down here that the record's changed. It's now moved to a false. That's the document that's been attached. Okay, I can see as I scroll across the screen, I've got access to things like the date that it was actually changed, time it was changed, and who changed it. Okay, and again, if I want to change it again, I right click on it and I can re-edit the match at any stage. Okay, so that's pretty much the level of detail it goes to. So what you've got is the original entity that was set up. We've passed it through to RDC for a real-time scan. Results have come back to the enVisual system, bringing with it any source documents that RDC have produced. They've been put into live file, as you saw, and then we can go in here and then we can analyze all the different records, all the hits that have been put against the document, against the match, and I can put optional notes and documents against those, each of those hits. One thing you can also see at the top of the screen there is just go across the screen. I think we've been through most of those. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Now, last thing I'll show you in here is the export function on the grid. If I right click on the grid itself, I have an option to export to. Okay, this is a grid export function, so it's not a record export. If you want to limit what's being exported, you've got a whole range of filters that you can run on this grid to minimize the number of records you're seeing. You might want to have a look at any hits that have been in the last 6 months or the last day. Show me just my false status hits or my positive status hits. You do all those sorts of filters within these grids, and then you can do your export. Okay, I'm going to export straight out to Excel. Okay, that's better. Okay, so there's the grid we're looking at. So you can see down here, all the fields we looked at in that grid have all been exported directly into here. Okay, see how many rows there are. Exactly 52 rows. Okay, so I'll just close Excel down. Okay, all right, and we just close the form, and that's now permanently saved in the audit trail. Just to also any other entity that I have on board, I can have a look at. I'll choose one more entity before we go. Choose one called Lee Ward. Okay, I'm now running Lee Ward, and I'll go into Lee Ward's on LiveScan details. And you can see down here that I have just a lot more hits. So this is an example of an entity that's had a number of reviews on them. So you might be doing a review on them every 6 months. It's just basically will just build up the history as you need to build up the history. You see down there that's also interesting for this particular entity is that over time we've had a risk score which has been changing. So you can see that risk score at one stage was 90, which had gone up, and it's then moved back to 75. So you can see there that we've also got a statistic next to it to show you the variations in the actual risk ratings, which might be quite interesting to look at. Very, very, very cool to look at those kind of things in dashboards as well, as how much your risks have changed over periods of time. Okay, and of course your color coding is nice in terms of false positives are flagged in green. Positive matches are matched in red. You do have a positive match there. Okay, that's pretty much it. Again, it's a big area in the system that we are developing at the moment, the whole area of compliance. But the LiveScan area in the system can be used effectively now. What you can do with it is, as you're creating entities in this system, of course, when you open up version 4 of enVisual, those same entities will be there. So it's we're still talking about a common interface across the entire system. Great, have fun, enjoy it, love to hear your feedback. Thanks guys, speak to you soon.